So was it coaching or execution? That's the question every LSU fan is asking today, and we're talking about it on Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Glad to have you aboard with us here. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC, a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store, to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. So back home in Baton Rouge, and glad to be back. It was a great trip to Las Vegas. Tons of Tiger fans went. Vibes, as we talked about, were incredible. LSU took over in many ways. The Mandalay Bay Sportsbook, they ran out of beer despite being prepped of what was coming. Talked to my friend Sally Steele from the LSU Alumni Association, made a site visit a couple of months before the game, warned them, hey, there's a lot of Ultra, Bud Light, Tito's, and something else. She tried to prep Crown and tried to prep them on all that stuff, and they still were not ready. The party was fantastic. The game, however, was not. And all day Monday was a travel day home for a lot of LSU fans, and it was for us as well. And if I had this conversation one time, I had it 24 times over the course of the day Monday. And it was people asking, was it coaching or execution that cost LSU? And depending on who you talk to, I think you got a couple of different answers. I also had LSU fans say the game plan was too conservative. And then others that said, man, how can you not run the football when you're trying to run the football? Well, which is it? There has to be some answer there. So I want to delve into that, and I also want to delve into a little bit of what I think the path through September looks like to get to the game that at the beginning of this season, I said, for me, was the single biggest game of the year. As a matter of fact, if you care to go check out the Locked on SEC or Locked on College Football SEC preview, when we went around and asked that the biggest game, a lot of people would think Alabama, but certainly the Ole Miss game is one that I've consistently circled, and for a lot of reasons that we're going to talk about today as well. Let's dive, though, into the conversation of coaching versus execution, because a lot of LSU fans seem to be disappointed with Brian Kelly for, quote-unquote, blaming the players. And I don't think he blamed the players. I think he pointed out some obvious things. A couple of silly penalties by veteran players, and then he said USC's quarterback outplayed their guy. And he's right. We talked about it on yesterday's episode. Both. That doesn't mean Garrett Nussmeier played badly. I think Garrett Nussmeier played very well. But in 2 drives in the fourth quarter with the lead, you punted twice. They had consecutive fourth quarter drives where Miller Moss led them on touchdown drives that ultimately won them the game. So in the clutch moments, they made plays. You didn't hat tip to USC. They won the game. But how does LSU end up in that situation? And I think the answer is both coaching and execution. It's never binary. It's never either or. But I want to delve into this a little bit more, and I think you'll understand what I mean. So let's start with the thing that was most upsetting to me at the start of the game, and that was LSU winning the coin toss and electing to receive. There are 3 this is math. You always defer. The math, the metrics, the data is there. You defer when you have the option because you want to have the opportunity to score on back-to-back possessions, end of the first half, start of the second half, and you want the extra possession in the second half in case you have to go on a game-winning drive like we saw USC do. Look, and history you would think is a great teacher, but unfortunately for Brian Kelly, this wasn't the case. This happened 3 times a year ago to LSU. 3 times with situations just like this. And it started in the Florida State game. LSU won the toss against Florida State, went right down the field, went forward on a 4th and goal, and stalled out, got no points right there. Florida State, when you look at how the first half ended last year, Florida State took the ball right down the field, scored a touchdown, and then got the ball to start the second half. And actually, Damian Ramos missed a field goal at the end of the half for LSU. LSU got it with short clock because Florida State scored, so short possession for LSU. Ramos misses a 56-yarder. Well, touchdown Florida State, field goal to start the second half, boom, boom. And, of course, the game got away, so it didn't necessarily matter having the last possession of the game, but that's how it played out anyway. Back-to-back games, this was relevant again. Ole Miss and Missouri in back-to-back weeks a year ago. Ole Miss got the ball to start the game, scored a touchdown. LSU at the end of the first half it turned the ball over on downs and then got the ball. Actually, it was this. Forgive me. This was the Damian Ramos miss, not in the Florida State game. Forgive me. This was the Ramos miss. So again, Ole Miss got the ball, so you're thinking, okay, here's your opportunity to score in back-to-back possessions. You drive down the field at the end of the first half, and Ramos misses a field goal. You get the ball to start the second half. You score a touchdown. You would have gone back-to-back, but for the missed field goal. Then, if you want to look at the Missouri game, a very similar thing happened there as well, where LSU got the ball to start the game, again, won the toss, took the ball, which you never want to do, and went 3-and-out and punted. Missouri, at the end of the half, made a field goal. It was their big kicker. What was his name? Mevis. Mevis made a 50-yard field goal. Then they got the ball to start the second half, but he missed a field goal at the start of the second half. So he had the opportunity to go back-to-back there. And then at the end of the game, they missed a field goal as well after the pick six. So point being, we've seen this play out. And you would think Brian Kelly, with all the experience he has, would learn from that experience even just a year ago, but history was not a great teacher. That's coaching. Let's look at penalties. You could say penalties are the mark of a disciplined team, and that falls on coaching, and I don't disagree. You had a delay of game on a change of possession. Inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable with a fourth-year quarterback. I don't care if it's first year as a starter. On a change of possession to have a delay of game on first down is inexcusable. I and everyone else would have crushed Ed Ogeron for that. Brian Kelly deserves to be crushed for that. Joe Sloan, the whole operation. You cannot have a delay of game coming out of a change of possession. The unsportsmanlike conduct on Lacey and Burns. Yes, we could say that's the sign of an undisciplined team, and that falls on coaching. At some point, though, I think players have to be accountable as well. If you're Kyron Lacey, you need to not feign pointing a gun at an opponent after you score a touchdown. That hurt you. You had to kick off at your own 20. That allowed Zachariah Branch the long kickoff return and ultimately led to points for USC. Major Burns, you had gotten the ball. Turnover on downs. He takes his helmet off. Instead of starting at the 36, you start at the 21. You go 3-and-out right there. You give them a short field. They get points again. Both of those cost you points, cost you dearly, and those were mistakes that you could say, yes, coaching, undisciplined team, but I also look at a veteran player and say, you got to be better. That falls on both of them. Let's look at the pass interference penalties. Pass interference on Stamps, pass interference on Woodland. Is that coaching or was that execution? Well, both guys got beaten badly and were called for PI. That's execution. Does that fall on coaching? I don't think so. So my point is, Brian Kelly, I think, made a bonehead decision at the beginning of the game. The operation wasn't good, having a delay of game coming out of a change of possession. You also had some penalties that were player execution and some silly moments. So I think it falls on both the coaches and the players in this instance. And yes, ultimately, when Brian Kelly's paid $10 million a year, the buck stops with him, and it all funnels back to him because if this team wins, he gets praise. If they lose, it's on him. So yes, all of it ultimately funnels up to the head coach, no doubt. In the game, though, you can look at moments where, yes, Brian Kelly deserves blame, but there are also moments where players deserve blame, and that also comes to what we're going to talk about next, which is execution and the conservative game plan that some think LSU went through. I'm going to run through this because there are parts of the game plan that I loved and parts of the narrative that fans have right now that are just factually wrong. And there are things also that I think absolutely, positively have got to get fixed. And that's what you need to spend the next 4 weeks working on. We're delving into that as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. So pleased to be telling you about our friends over at Ultimate Ultimate College Football HC. Take a moment. Hey, look, if you're tiddling around at work or piddling around at work, trying to find a way to kill some time as you get closer to the game, I want you to download Ultimate College Football HC. It's an amazing game and simulation where you step into the shoes of the head coach. You lead your college football program to glory. Imagine you being Brian Kelly. May not be a great thing today, but you get to recruit players. You get to hire staff. You get to oversee training camps, scholarship distribution, all of it. You control every detail of your program, all in your hands. It's one. And by the way, one of the components of this that I really love is when you get to the games, you call the plays. So if you think you could do a better job, fitting basically what we're talking about right now, your strategy determines the success of the game, the season. You get to do it all. It's Ultimate College Football HC, and it's completely free. It's got no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. So play on the go as you want. You're on a flight. You want to play where maybe you don't have an internet connection, whatever the case may be. Ultimate College Football HC. Of course, we got a special offer for our Locked On LSU fans. Use the promo code Locked On CFB. That's all caps, Locked On CFB inside the game store, and receive a free boost to your program. So make sure to take advantage of this perk. It'll get your team off to a strong start. So to download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com. That's ultimate-cfb.com. Or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your legacy today. So we've gone through the coaching execution. There's tons of examples that we could look at. I gave you three. One that was very clearly, or two that were very clearly coaching, one where I think there's shared blame, and one where it's on the players. I think part of that falls into the game plan as well, because a lot of what the feedback I've gotten from LSU fans has been, hey, man, they were way too conservative sitting on the football. And the other part that I've heard is, how come you couldn't run the football when you needed to run the football? So which is it? Did you want them to run the ball and milk clock, or did you want them to be aggressive and wide open? Now, I told you my feeling on it. Going into the game, I thought they were going to lean on the run. They were going to shorten the game. And look, they tried to do that. Very clearly, they were trying to shorten that game and run clock and protect the defense. And by and large, that worked. But it also maybe cost you scoring opportunities. How about this? Brian Kelly said after the game, you can't have 6 points when you get inside the 15 three times. Well, he was actually wrong. You were inside the 15 three times and you scored 10 points. You had the chip shot field goal at the end from Damian Ramos, and then the Aaron Anderson touchdown was from the 13-yard line. The catch and run was a 13-yarder. So twice inside the 15, or three times inside the 15, you got 10 points. Obviously, in the opening possession of the game, you got inside the 5. You get down to the 3 and got no points. You had 4 red zone chances. You scored 3 of the 4 with 17 points. So 2 touchdowns. The Kyron Lacey touchdown grab was a 19-yard reception. Aaron Anderson was a 13-yard reception. And then obviously you had the chip shot from Ramos at the end of the game. Those were your 3 scores. You didn't score in the opening possession of the ball game. But here's where I would like to illustrate what, in my opinion, speaks to the contradiction of this fan narrative of the play calling. So LSU has the lead 17-13. And the Tigers get the ball with 2 possessions in the fourth quarter with the lead, up 17-13. The first drive of the fourth quarter, when LSU's got the lead, comes after LSU gets the stop on 4th down. It's 4th and 9 from the LSU 36. Remember, LSU's up 4. LSU's up 4, so SC decides not to try a long field goal. They try from the LSU 36 to go for it on 4th and 9. And Savion Jones comes up with a big play where they bat the ball in the air, almost intercepted. And then Major Burns took his helmet off, so you have the 15-yard penalty. So instead of starting at your 36, you're starting at your 21. Here was the sequence. Remember, by the way, 8:38 in the ball game. So you're in the fourth. You're just about the halfway point of the fourth quarter. You would love to run the ball, salt it away right here. John Emery, first down, gets tackled for a loss of 5. So it's 2nd and 15. Garrett Nussmeier to Kamorian Pimpton for 14 yards. Beautiful catch by the young guy. Almost gets you the first down, 1 yard shy. So now here you have 3rd and 1. And this is a play that a lot of LSU fans have talked about, and you'll remember. It's 3rd and 1 from your own 30. All right. You're approaching the 7-minute mark. Okay. And they hand the ball off to John Emery. And John Emery was your bell cow at this point. He was the guy with the fresh legs through the 3rd quarter who was the guy you wanted in the ball game. And Emery gets dropped for a loss of a yard. Now, a lot of LSU fans have said this heralded offensive line, how can you not get a yard? Go back and watch the play. I don't have the rights to it, so I can't show it to you here if you're watching on YouTube. But you can find the clip. Kamorian Pimpton, the sophomore tight end, who just made the 14-yard reception on the previous play, is lined up, 3-point stands on the right side of the line. The defensive end comes right inside of Kamorian Pimpton and crushes John Emery. If you watch the play, they were running to the left side of the line. The hole was there, and LSU would have picked up a first down with under 7 minutes to play and would have chewed at least 2 more minutes off that clock. And who knows what happens with the game in that situation. Maybe you put together a long drive that puts the game away. Maybe not, but maybe. I look at that and I don't say, man, what a conservative play call. I look at that and I say, you had the right look. You had the right back in the game. You ran into the left side where you have Garrett Dellinger and Will Campbell, and the hole was there. You would have converted on that play. But your young guy who's learning to be a blocker, a blocking tight end, missed a block. I'm not blaming Kamorian Pimpton. I'm not saying the loss is on him or anything like that. But this is part of what you're going to deal with when you're asking the question about, was it too conservative? In that moment on 3rd and 1 with that offensive line, as much as we've talked about him, you got to go get a yard. A 6-year running back and John Emery, who had been running hard throughout the second half, get a yard. Well, it wasn't on Emery. It wasn't on the offensive line. In that moment, your young tight end missed a block. Similar 2 years ago when Mason Taylor was a true freshman and you play Florida State and Jeray Jenkins catches a touchdown that should tie the game and you get the PAT blocked because freshman tight end Mason Taylor didn't block properly, let a guy come inside him who blocked the PAT. Some of that's growing pains with a young player. Not blaming Kamorian Pimpton, please don't misunderstand. But if you're just going to say this offensive line, they got run stuff, then you didn't watch the play. And I don't think that that's too conservative of play call because you were trying to run clock. You ran John Emery. You got behind the sticks. And then you got ahead again because you gained 14 yards on a beautiful pitch and catch from Nussmeier to Kamorian Pimpton. So anyway, you punt the ball and you give it back to USC. And of course, we know SC at this point would go down and would score the touchdown to go up 20-17. So now you're trailing. Okay. Now you're trailing. And you go, and this is the drive where you're down in the ball game in the 4th quarter, and this would be the drive where ultimately they went and kicked the field goal. But listen to the play call here. This drive started with the Will Campbell false start, and then you had the offsides, so it evened out at 1st and 10. 3-yard completion to Aaron Anderson, pass. 3-yard run, Josh Williams, run. 41-yard catch and run by Aaron Anderson. Boom, you're in business. John Emery rush for no gain. Now you're going pass rush, and you're right down the field. 12 yards to Xavion Thomas. Beautiful play call, by the way. Remember they reviewed it to see if Thomas caught it on the sideline where it looked like his elbow got down right there on the sideline. 12-yard, beautiful play call, beautiful catch. So pass. John Emery run. You've gone pass, run, 6 straight plays. It's a beautiful mix. You've got him off balance. You're moving right down the field. It's 2nd and 8 at the USC 14. And Nussmeier throws a pass in the flat for Aaron Anderson on the right side that was incomplete. And it was the one ball all day that Nuss threw that was a head scratcher. Because if you complete that pass, Aaron Anderson maybe scores there. You certainly get a first down there. And it's maybe a completely different outcome. And then obviously on 3rd and 8, Nuss went to the left side and intended for Kyron Lacey, and it was incomplete. So, I mean, there was great balance. It got you right down the field. Your play call and your execution were both good there until the execution wasn't. And again, Nuss was great all day. He was so good. But that was right at the 2-minute timeout. And when you were trailing by 3 and instead you have to kick a field goal to tie it instead of going up there. So it's a bummer that it played out the way it did. So I guess my point is, if you're just blaming play call or saying they were too conservative, I just disagree. And the other drive that I meant to talk about, and forgive me for this, was the drive before the 3 and out. And this is where LSU started on their own 23. This was the end of the third quarter that went into the fourth quarter again. So you're still up 17-13. It was the 2 drives you had, up 17-13 with a chance to build. First down, Emery for 6 yards. Second down, 10-yard completion to John Emery. That's the end of the third quarter. So boom, boom, just like that at the end of the third quarter, you're in business with a run, then a pass to the running back out of the backfield. You found your hot hand. First play of the fourth quarter, you run John Emery 4 yards. And then this was a call that I loved this call, y'all. It was a deep shot to Trey'Dez Green. And you can't tell me they're being conservative. You cannot tell me in this moment, in a 17-13 game, playing a 2nd and 6 from your own 43, you put a freshman tight end into the game for the first time and give him his first career target. And they took a deep shot down the left sideline for Trey'Dez Green. And ultimately, Nuss, you hat tip USC. SC brought a ton of pressure. Nuss backpedaled and just heaved it to get rid of the football so as not to take a negative play. And so Trey'Dez didn't get an opportunity to go make a play. But in that moment, they had Trey'Dez in an ISO route where it was one-on-one Trey'Dez Green against the defensive back. And I will take that matchup every time. But SC's front, you credit Dan Lynn. He brought pressure. Nuss forced the throw and couldn't complete the pass. But you can't tell me that's a conservative play call in that moment. You put a freshman on the field on a 2nd and 6 in the fourth quarter in a 4-point game and gave him his first target. And then on 3rd and 6, it was a short right completion to Josh Williams, and ultimately you had to punt. So I guess my point is, as I've continued to reiterate, I don't think the game plan was conservative. I don't think they were sitting on the ball. I think they very clearly, look, LSU ran 10 players caught passes in this ball game. The Trey'Dez Green target we just talked about. You had 38 pass attempts and 26 rush attempts. I don't know how you can look at it and say they were being conservative. If you look at the deep pass statistics, that's air yards of 15 or more, balls that traveled 15 yards or more in the air. SC was 5 of 6. LSU was 4 of 8. LSU took more deep shots in this game than did USC. So you got to finish drives, period. That's it. You got to finish drives. You had 4 red zone possessions. You scored on 3 of them. One of them was a field goal. One of them was no points. If you convert touchdowns in the red zone, you win this game. If you get points on your opening drive and you don't stall out late when you were right down there and you ended up kicking a chip shot field goal, you win this game. I know when the loss comes, I'm not hand waving y'all. I promise I'm not excusing the loss. Ultimately you have to win. And so it's on the coaches to call the right plays and the players to execute them. And like Brian Kelly said, they didn't play complimentary football. It was almost like they got a little complacent. And so on both sides of the ball, some of that stuff happened and it came to bite you. But I saw a lot of stuff in there that tells me they weren't being complacent, and a lot of plays that probably should have worked if they were executed right. I also look and say there were coaching bungles in this game that cost you the game, starting with the coin toss and down to the decision not to take points on the opening possession of the ball game. But I guess just to put a button on this, there's a lot to like. Nuss is really good. The receivers are really good. The offensive line, Nussmeier wasn't sacked all day. Your offensive line is fantastic in pass protection, and maybe that means you're going to have to lean more heavily on the pass than you'd like. But I don't think the game plan was too conservative. You've put up over 400 yards of offense. You just got to convert points when you have the opportunity. That's something they didn't do at times when they had the right opportunity. They'll have a great opportunity over the next month to iron out some of those wrinkles. And we'll talk about that as we wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. Man, If you are tired after lunch, getting back to work here on Tuesday after the Labor Day weekend, grab a 5-hour energy. I've shared this with you for a while now, but I've done my radio show for almost 15 years, and for a long time, been in the habit of grabbing a 5-hour energy and taking it right before my show. I go on at 3 o'clock Central, 2:55. I'd throw back a 5-hour energy shot. Grape Extra Strength is my favorite. And for me, the great benefit was that there's no sugar. I never ever had a crash that some people would talk about with energy drinks. Never had that. I love that you could take it in seconds. Like literally, it's a shot. I mean, it's just down the hatch and you're done in seconds, and it starts working. I mean, I take the shot at 2:55. I'm on at 3, and I felt great. So you were already starting to feel the effects. And for me, my 5-hour energy shot would give me intense focus. And that's what I needed to make it through a 3-hour radio show, which is very intense, not physically intense, but as far as the concentration and cognitively. So if it's to get to the rest of your day after lunch, if you got a big to-do list you have coming up, maybe you want to take one before a workout, or you need to make it through a long day of watching sports, you can get in the zone with 5-hour energy shots that give you that alert feeling and the energy you need to get in the zone, as they call it. So you can try it. No sugar. It's convenient, portable size. It's a great pick-me-up for getting stuff done. They got tons of flavors. You can go to the website. You have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. You can choose the flavors that you want. Then it's delivered right to your door. And of course, we have a great offer for you. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5, 5hourenergy.com. You can get some 5-hour energy product today. Use my promo code. It's locked on CFB, and get 20% off your order. Offers only valid until September the 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's 5hourenergy.com. As we wrap up today's episode quickly, I kind of want to just lay out the rest of September for LSU to kind of build towards something that all throughout this offseason I thought was the biggest game of the season, which is the Ole Miss game in Baton Rouge, even bigger than the Alabama game for a lot of reasons. And in particular, because I think if you are thinking playoff, you could end up in a head-to-head tiebreaker situation, and you need to win that game at home. And if you lose that Ole Miss game, especially after now having lost to SC, it really leaves you no margin for error the rest of the way. And as we've talked about that Ole Miss game, the situation favors LSU. LSU's at home. Ole Miss hasn't won in Baton Rouge since 2008. LSU gets a bye the week before Ole Miss. For Ole Miss, they're playing back-to-back road conference games where they go at South Carolina and then at LSU. So for Ole Miss at that point, they would not have had their first bye. They play Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, at South Carolina, at LSU. So the third consecutive SEC game and second of back-to-back road conference games. The situation favors LSU. So for LSU, the key is, how do you get to that game 4-1? Well, you're going to be favored in every game you play. You play Nichols this week, and I think this is going to be an awesome opportunity to play a lot of young guys. You probably don't need Chris Hilton back. I would almost say don't rush Chris Hilton back at this point. Just get him ready to go at South Carolina. I think this would be an amazing opportunity for PJ Woodland to get more reps, for some of the young safeties like Kylan Jackson, Deshaun Spears, maybe to see their first action, to get some of those younger defensive tackles as part of the rotation as well. Great opportunity for those guys. And then you go to South Carolina. And Williams-Brice is never an easy place to play. I mean, they put 80,000 people in there, even when they're a terrible football team, and it's loud, it's raucous. They play Sandstorm. They're a very loyal fan base. I've been to games at Williams-Brice, and it's a ton of fun to go. But y'all, South Carolina is a bad football team. That is an offensive team. They beat Old Dominion 23-19. And I don't mean to throw shade at Old Dominion, because that's a good G5 team now, who's actually, Old Dominion had a nice win a couple of years ago, I believe, at Virginia Tech. Might have been last year, early in the season. But Lenora Sellers, the new quarterback for South Carolina, against Old Dominion at home, was 10 of 23 for 114 yards. It was absolutely heinous. And I actually did watch a chunk of that game because we were at a sports book in Vegas, and there were 10 games on, and naturally I was keeping an eye on Carolina because LSU goes there in a few weeks. So yes, I absolutely think you should go to Columbia, South Carolina and win that game with ease. You're going to come home and play UCLA. I'm not sure if you noticed, but UCLA had a lot of trouble in their season opening win. They went to Hawaii and won 16-13 in Deshaun Foster's debut. Garbers, the quarterback for UCLA, 19 of 38, so 50% completions for 272, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Hawaii actually led that game 10-0, and then again 13-7 before UCLA finally tied it at 13 in the fourth quarter and then kicked a field goal with 56 seconds to go to escape with a win. The point is, you will be a heavy favorite in Baton Rouge against a bad UCLA team and should win that game handily. And then you play South Alabama. And South Alabama is a good team from the G5. That's going to be a night game in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge native, Major Applewhite, now the South Alabama head coach, Catholic High alum, will be bringing his team in. But this is a game that you have no business losing on your home field. I'm not sure if you saw what South Alabama did this weekend, but they played North Texas in their season opener and lost 52-38. Yes, at home, South Alabama allowed 52 points to North Texas. All that to say, you have a very, very manageable month ahead of you to get a lot of these issues ironed out, to get healthy, to be playing your best football going into your open date before Ole Miss comes to Baton Rouge. And if you go into that game at 4-1 and you beat Ole Miss, which will be undefeated in top 10 in the country at that point, now all of a sudden the entire complexion of your season has changed. Because at that point, now you can realistically look and say, you should be favored at Arkansas. You can win at Texas A&M. I'm not saying that's easy, but you can. Then you get an open date before you host Alabama. You beat Bama here in Baton Rouge in Brian Kelly's first season, and I think LSU's got a great chance to win that game this year. You're at Florida, who I think is going to have an interim coach by that point. You're home against Vandy, who all of a sudden looks way more formidable. And then you're home against Oklahoma, who we'll see what they are by that point. But the point is, it's doable if you can get over the Ole Miss hurdle. If you can't beat Ole Miss, then you're sitting there at 2 losses at the beginning of October, and now you have to win out. You have to win out if you want a chance at the playoff. So, not trying to get ahead of ourselves. I know there's a lot of disappointed people with how Sunday night played out, and I'm one of them. Look, I was there. I went to Vegas, spent 4 days there, and I'm tired of going on these trips and watching LSU lose. But you've put yourself in a tough spot by losing that game. But the key is you got to beat Ole Miss. You've got to beat Ole Miss in Baton Rouge. So take the next month and put yourself in the best position possible to win that game. And then you've completely redefined what the second half of your season looks like if you get past Ole Miss there in October. Of course, we'll be here every day talking about it. Hey, thanks so much for being part of the show. And thanks for making Locked on LSU your first listen today and every day. Now go check out Locked on College Football with my buddy Spencer McLaughlin. It's linked. The link to Locked on College Football is in the description, so you don't even need to search for it. It's part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.